It's very apparent they've endured a long dry spell out here at Mount Riddick Station, right in the middle of Australia.
It is the worst year in 32 years we've been here.
The Kadzau family are acutely familiar with the extreme ebbs and flows of running cattle in desert country northeast of Alice Springs, and know the secrets of surviving such a harsh environment.
Sometimes, especially when it's like this, I mean, you sort of wonder how anything can keep surviving, but it just pops up again, like can be dormant for so long and then come back to life.
One of the other interesting things, when those hills get burnt, all the springs open up.
Oh, really?
Water runs out everywhere.
The Kadzau family has been here since 1986, running a herd of Pole Hereford cattle. Taking over the family station was always Steve Kadzau's ambition, but a simple handover can be a fraught process, as too many farming families know.
It's usually the case of the one that stays home, works the hardest and gets nothing. I'd been here, and it was my choice to stay here, I suppose. I loved every minute of it and still do.
But a forward-thinking approach to succession planning has saved the family substantial pain.
At the end of the day, it was just something that had to be done, we just had to sell up and divvy up. That's about all we could do.
Straight away when you got here?
It now means Steve can fulfil his ambition of managing the land his way.
Dad had his ideas and I had mine, and before I took over, well, it was Dad's way, and sneakily around the back I used to do some of mine, but we did do a lot more after I took over.
He was always looking to run his own place and make his way in the cattle game.
Definitely, yeah. It was where I didn't know, and I sort of always hoped it'd be here.
But owning a piece of land in the north is notoriously difficult.
If you want to come in and buy a place like our parents did, it is not affordable.
It's a market that doesn't move much, and when it does, large capital is required to get a foot in the door due to the size of the places. It's a predicament rural agent Andy Gray is all too familiar with.
We now have applied a beast area value to pastoral properties. So we not only have the value of the livestock, we have the value of the land and fixed improvements, which has grown significantly. So the private investor has found it more difficult than perhaps those with the larger chequebook, perhaps.
Up the road a few thousand kilometres, there are others who also can't picture life outside the cattle yards. The Victoria River District skirts the Kimberley and is prime cattle breeding country.
We're at Newry Station, Dave, where you're the manager. How many head do you run here?
So we've got about 18,000 head of cattle here. We're a little bit lighter at the moment just because we're going to have a dry finish to the season. We didn't quite have the wet we wanted, so.
Dave Young was one of the youngest managers to head up a corporate cattle station after he took over the 2,500 square kilometre Newry Station in 2017. It was then owned by beef giant Consolidated Pastoral Company, but has since been sold to Vietnamese group Clean Agriculture and International Tourism.
I grew up in northwest Queensland on a large cattle property there. And I spent the first 15 years of my life growing up there. One of 7 siblings, and we all went to Mount Isa School there, and basically started in the industry from the get-go.
You're sort of following in your dad's footsteps in some ways, though. He managed properties his whole life, is that the case?
He did, yeah. He was still running King. He was probably into his 50s. He was probably one of the last sort of era that head stockmans were that age.
Dave decided to move from Queensland to get experience under his belt and pave his own way, starting at the bottom as a jackaroo. He says big companies offer a variety of experience and exposure that has broadened his horizons and better equipped him to buy his own place.
Most of my early life was spent on larger private blocks and working for private people, and I really enjoyed it. I got a lot of experience out of it, but a lot of doors open for you when you get into a large networking group with a large corporate company size.
His advice to other young people eyeing off a career here is not to expect a meteoric rise.
I think you've nearly got to try and consider it a career, not just something that you're going to come into for 2 or 3 years and then expect to reach the top overnight. It's like anything else. You do have to start and work your way through, and it doesn't come overnight. It takes years of getting to that point with the right people around you.
His head stockman, Chad Golding, is embracing that advice as he follows in his boss's footsteps.
And what are your ambitions for the future?
To eventually manage a place of my own for CPC or, in the coming years. Everything nowadays you can't really buy into. It's a lot of money to invest in, but this is sort of the other option, I suppose, in what you can do. So.
Leasing is another option on the table.
It's probably a bit like buying your first home. Perhaps not going to be your forever home, but it gets you into the market and you build from there. And there's some real success stories in the Northern Territory of people who have been able to achieve that by leasing country, adjusting country, and then building as they go.
With more than half the land in the Northern Territory owned by Indigenous people, it's also an area of untapped potential. Properties can be leased off traditional owners who may not want to use the country to run livestock themselves. Most areas are underdeveloped, but some even have infrastructure from former cattle days.
Northern Land Council, Central Land Council will offer those properties out to the marketplace again, giving those who want to participate in the industry an opportunity to come in and graze that area. So there's an opportunity then to build your herd, build your equity. The next step then is to go into the property market.
Becca and her husband Steve made a tree change from winemaking in the Margaret River to return to their childhood cattle roots near Darwin.
Definitely long-term looking for our own property, yeah.
Yeah, and it's just, I suppose, it's those numbers we have to build, you know, and for that you need land, so, and that's what will make the dream come true.
They see the North as a place of opportunity and have been gradually building up the country they lease and numbers of cattle they can run. But they've had to be clever with how they source financing.
We've been rejected for a few different loans just because we don't have enough capital and enough cash. So we've used livestock funding loans to like Stockco to help us get the cash that we need.
They say if you can get a foot in the door, the returns are there.
Agriculture is very important for the Australian economy, and you know we've seen through COVID it hasn't slowed down. And even cattle, classic example. Boats haven't slowed down, slaughter hasn't slowed down.
Wherever in the north they call home to run their cattle, the Red Desert, the Kimberley's ragged outcrops, or the monsoonal top end, it is by all accounts a lifestyle well worth protecting.
Family structures are being built, dynasties are being built around the pastoral industry. I still say that there's an opportunity to do that. This is a point in time now. 30 years ago was a point in time. 30 years' time will be another point in time, but the opportunity right now is still there for people, absolutely.
It's awesome. Yeah, we bring George along. I think he must have more cattle this year than not, but
and he's only 6 months old, so.
That's really what we're working for now, trying to get a place for George, and that's the dream.
I grew up doing it, loved it as a kid. I think it'd be one of the best.
I don't know what I'd do if I had to leave. If I had to go and get I don't even know what sort of job I'd get if I had to move on. So I can do this one, so I'll stay at it.